All right. Welcome in, guys. Farzine Vasugian here with you for an episode of the Chief Zone podcast. It is a Friday evening. Yes, it is definitely a time where we usually do not do the podcast. It's almost 6 o'clock Central Time doing this live for all of you who are tuning in and watching live. Definitely appreciate you guys. Apologies for not having a podcast earlier in the week. Obviously, no Red Friday live chat today. The podcast is replacing that. I'll address all of that in just a moment. Just want to let you know real quickly, this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs, whether you want to catch the Chiefs, the Royals, Sporting KC, KC Current, KU, MU, K-State, or any other sports team out there in or outside of the Kansas City area. You can go get your tickets from SeatGeek, and new customers can use my promo code Farzine and save $20 off their first purchase from SeatGeek. All right. I'll wait for a few people to get in, and I'll explain what's going on here. I want to let you know some of the topics that we're going to be discussing on this podcast today. Obviously, breaking down the game between the Chiefs and the Texans. Some news going on in and outside of Kansas City. Hollywood Brown is back. The New York Jets, they're a complete disaster. You already knew that, but wait till you hear the latest story if you haven't heard already. The Broncos on Thursday Night Football choked yesterday. They're going to make the playoffs, but they now put themselves in a position where they definitely need to focus and try to win. Otherwise, they could be in trouble. That does leave the door open for one team out there. So there's a fan base that's giving themselves false hope. Some breaking news involving the Baltimore Ravens Friday afternoon, and a former Chief currently going through some injuries and is not expected to return this season. All of that and much more here on this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. My name is Farzine Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me on this Friday evening. It's the holidays. I know you guys have a lot of things you can do better than this, but you're tuning in to the podcast, so I appreciate you guys. Real quickly, before we go any further, let me just explain. I know I promoted we would do a podcast on Monday. Didn't. We usually do our podcast on Wednesdays, our pregame podcast on Wednesdays, breakdown podcast, I should say. That didn't happen either. I've been, first of all, insane, crazy schedule, but that's not why the podcast did not occur. I've also been under the weather. It has not been a fun week for me. I am on the mend. I'm starting to feel much, much better. If you guys hear my voice, maybe doesn't sound the same, that could be why. And by the way, for those of you who are watching, does the audio sound good to you guys? My equipment just went through an update by itself right before I started going, and the audio sounds a little different, but I don't really know if that is even noticeable or significant on your guys' end. On my end, there's a little bit of a, maybe it's because I have headphones on, but I do notice a little bit of a difference. But I need to know if you guys can hear me, if I'm good, all that stuff. That would be greatly appreciated. Audio is perfect. Okay, great. It's almost like the update didn't even matter. So that's good. But yes, I've been under the weather this week. That's why there was no podcast. So I apologize. For those of you listening on the audio version, I've got a couple bottles of water next to me. So if I mean, you guys watching notice this, but for those of you on the audio version, if you guys hear me pause, it's because I'm taking sips of water like I am right now. So you'll be noticing that throughout the podcast. Don't worry, it's not on your end. I appreciate you, Tyneal. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you guys with all the well wishes. Thank you. So yeah, we are. That's why we had the delay. Okay, good to know. You guys can hear me. Awesome. We can get some interaction going here because there's a lot to get into. And let's be honest, my voice is not fully equipped for this length of a podcast. So let's get right into it. John did bring up Leo Chenal. So this was, we got a couple of big stories today involving the Chiefs. The first one is Leo Chenal. He was added to the injury report today with an illness. Seems like a lot of people are dealing with that right now, unfortunately. We do not know the status of him. He is questionable right now. Look, let's just assume it's the flu or the cough, one of those things. I would guess, listen, team doctors always have the best resources for these kinds of things. They'll be able to figure things out and be able to get Leo Chanel ready to go. I think he will play. It's going to be 100%. I don't know. Listen, you know these football players, they're adrenaline, all that stuff. They're always different than the average human being. They're like Marvel superheroes sometimes. So, but don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here. We'll see tomorrow if he's on the field for pregame warmups. That'll be the first indication. If he's on the field for pregame warmups, I think that's a good idea that he will play. So we'll find that out fairly early tomorrow morning when the Chiefs are doing their pregame warmups. The other big story that is out there, and this is a big one here. And you know what? I haven't done the air horns in quite a while. So let's do it this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, Hollywood Brown is back and will make his debut tomorrow. Yes. That is happening tomorrow for the Chiefs. They'll be getting Hollywood Brown back. Yeah, I mean, this is a long time coming because I was very excited for this edition. I think Hollywood Brown's been a fantastic receiver wherever he's gone, but he's also dealt with some limitations because of the quarterbacks he's played with. If you guys recall, in the offseason, when it came to OTAs and training camp, Hollywood Brown and Patrick Mahomes established a really good connection on the field, off the field too. If you guys remember, they were sitting front row for the Dallas Mavericks game. It was Patrick, his wife Brittany, Travis Kelce was there, and Hollywood Brown joined them as well. So they spent a lot of time together on and off the field. And if you remember, Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice, they had been training together a lot down south in Texas. And then when Xavier Worthy joined along, the expected wide receiver trio was supposed to be Hollywood, Rice, and Worthy once Worthy got drafted. But unfortunately, Hollywood got injured, then Rice got hurt. Xavier Worthy was kind of thrust into this position that he was never really expected to be in. So he was kind of expected to do some of the things that we were expecting more from Rice and Hollywood. But the Chiefs, they went out there and got some help before the regular season. They did get Juju Smith-Schuster. He returned to Kansas City. Then the big trade they made was for DeAndre Hopkins, by far the biggest wide receiver. There were a lot of wide receivers on the move this year. One of them already failed. And Kansas City was actually considering that wide receiver. Thankfully, not the case. But they go and get DeAndre Hopkins. Well, Isaiah Pacheco's back. Kareem Hunt joined your team while Pacheco was hurt. Oh, and Hollywood's coming back. So it didn't pan out the way we thought it was going to, but things are kind of falling into place the way we thought it would. Our wide receivers were supposed to be Hollywood, Rice, and Worthy. That was the expected top three wide receiver trio for Kansas City. But things happen, and shit happens, right? That's what they say, right? Shit happens. But now you're in a situation where you're getting Hollywood back. You still have Worthy, and he's starting to play better. He's gradually getting far more involved with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense. And DeAndre Hopkins, he's starting to get more a better grasp of the offense. He and Mahomes have continued to establish a rapport on the field, and now you're getting Hollywood back. Yes, I am on the IR, Holly. Thank you. But we got to do a podcast. We can't wait any longer. Today was basically the deadline for me. But as far as Hollywood goes, what is the expectation from Hollywood Brown? Listen, I know we're all excited for him to come back because all he played was one preseason snap for the Chiefs. The good part is, I guess, we saw right off the bat, Mahomes and Hollywood, they were on the same page instantly. Can they carry that over and do more of that in the regular season? I don't need Hollywood Brown to go out there and get me 80, 90, 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't need any of that. In fact, I don't need a monster game from him. What I do need to see from Hollywood Brown is that he and Mahomes can get a feel for each other on the gridiron and just have an understanding of each other when it comes to football. Because the expectation earlier was that Hollywood would come back for the playoffs. And I said at the time, I don't know if that's a great idea. If your debut for the Chiefs, and I'm not counting the preseason, if your debut for the Chiefs is going to be the playoffs, man, that's not good. Because essentially, how that would work is that you have your first game with Kansas City in a playoff game. And that's not really the good time, the best time to really go out there and learn and kind of get a feel for your quarterback. But instead, we have that this week, or tomorrow rather, against the Texans. And that'll certainly help because you go and you play this game against the Texans, Hollywood's former team and D-Hop's former team. And you can kind of get a feel for each other in that game. Then they play a few days later this week on Christmas, and they'll be able to get another opportunity. If for whatever reason the Chiefs still find themselves fighting for the 1 seed, then they can play together one more time in that Broncos game. And then hopefully you got the 1 seed. Hopefully they lock it up before that, because this team could use that extra week of rest, almost like a 2-week bye, if you will. That Chiefs offense could really, the entire team, but certainly the offense, especially with everything that they're going through. So all I need from Hollywood in these 2 games here, this game and the Pittsburgh game, hopefully, and hopefully the Chiefs win them both, just get the football stuff down between him and Mahomes. Because then, once the playoffs start, that is when I start having high expectations from Hollywood. And look, realistically, I can't sit here and expect 100 yards from Hollywood, 100 from Kelsey, 100 from D-Hop and Worthy. I mean, that's not realistic. But you'll have a pretty good sense of the offense once you get into the playoffs. You'll see a much better unit on the field. And let's not forget about Noah Gray. He's been playing really well too. He's definitely someone who the Chiefs are going to rely on more come playoff time. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to work. Okay, I want to go to this New York Jets story. This is from The Athletic. A former Jets player basically spilled the tea, let out all the dirty laundry. And there were 2 specific things that really stood out the most to a lot of people. Number one is Woody Johnson, the owner. He was in the locker room, and Mike White, who was one of the backup quarterbacks, he eventually became one of the starters a couple of seasons ago after they pulled Zach Wilson. And he slammed his helmet in frustration after a game. And Woody Johnson apparently told him that he should slam his helmet because he sucks. Now, Mike White didn't hear it, but someone eventually got that word to him. Oh boy, that's not good. But the bigger one that everyone's talking about, the Jets were close to finalizing a deal with the Denver Broncos to acquire Jerry Jeudy. But Woody Johnson called off the trade. And the reason he called off the trade, because his teenage son told him that Jerry Jeudy's Madden rating was bad, and Woody Johnson decided to call off the trade. Now, there's another story about Woody Johnson's son going in the locker room and hanging out with his friends, male and female friends. I do know there are very strict policies in the locker room regarding kids, basically anyone 18 or under the age of 18, I should say. But listen, if you're Woody Johnson's kid and you're with your friends are with you, security's not going to say a damn thing because they don't want to piss off the owner. You piss off the owner. You say something to the owner's son that you shouldn't say. Well, you probably worry about losing your job. So yeah, I've seen people do this with Gracie Hunt because she films a lot of things at the stadium. I saw a clip of her and her boyfriend after one of the games. They were just hanging out. Dancing and kissing at midfield, and people were like, why is this allowed? Because she's the daughter's owner. Okay, that's why no one's going to say a damn thing to them. They can do whatever they want. And by the way, the Hunt family, they do have like a little, kind of like their own home inside that stadium. So that's they kind of live there while they're in Kansas City. And you can kind of tell with some of the social media stuff they post. But back to the Madden thing. I don't understand this. NFL teams literally employ scouts and assistants. Excuse me. They have all these people in their front office to evaluate these players. And you basically gave them the middle finger and said, I'm not going to go with what you guys are telling me. I'm going to go with my son who's giving me this information off of Madden. No, they don't. That's why when you're going through all the staff members, like, how do you not have an owner that just trusts who? Because that Clark Hunt does not do anything with the football team. He just hires the general manager and the head coach. That's all he does. That is all he does. And I believe that's what a lot of owners do in the NFL. Now, sometimes when shit hits the fan, and we've seen this a few times, yeah, ownership will get involved. But that's really it. That's all. The fact that you have an owner nixing a trade because of someone's fucking Madden rating? I mean, listen, the Jets were a joke. Everyone knew this. That franchise is pathetic. So I'm not giving you guys anything groundbreaking. But a Madden rating? What? Here's my question. Remember when the NFLPA report cards came out? We've only had this for 2 seasons. We're going to have it for a 3rd season in February or March. The Chiefs have failed really bad with those NFLPA report cards. Clark Hunt got an F-. I didn't even know you could get anything below an F. Evidently, you can. You can get an F-. Did not know that was possible. If Clark Hunt gets an F-, what does Woody Johnson get? Especially when a story like this comes out. There's no way Woody Johnson is not the worst owner in all of sports right now. I mean, listen, there are some teams, like look at the Chiefs from 2007 to 2012. And I know there were different general managers during that period. But during that time, we looked at the Chiefs, we're like, this is a joke. They don't even know what they're doing. But at least they were not judging players off of their Madden rating. I mean, at least not that we know of. I mean, we've seen terrible teams over the years and they just suck. We've seen that for a long time. But are any of them judging players based off their video game ratings? I sure as hell hope not. I mean, listen, there are people out there who judge players based off their fantasy football results or their pro football focus grades. I know players have a lot of opinions about that. But man, a friend says Woody is a Johnson. Yeah, he is. But man, this is embarrassing. Now, is there a chance that this is all false information? Maybe. But I'd like to think by now we would have had some sort of a statement from the Jets on this. Because if I'm the owner of a football team and this comes out about my team, dude, I would immediately put out a statement saying this is absolutely not true. This is not how we evaluate players. But the Jets are not doing anything. They're not making any effort to try to refute this story here. This has to be one of the more wild stories I've heard involving an NFL owner. I mean, how do you just take your teenage son's advice on freaking Madden? Yeah, there are some other things in this story. I'll let you guys look it up, but yeah, it's this is one of the more wilder stories. I immediately turned on talk radio and just started listening to all the opinions out there. Something that very few people put out there, and I put this on a reel yesterday. if you're a coach or a head coach or an assistant coach, if you're a general manager, if you're a scout, if you're a player and you're looking to join a team, why would you want to join the Jets? My only, like, the only logical explanation is that you are desperate to be a head coach or to be a coordinator or to be a starter in the NFL, and New York's the only option. I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like, the Jets are a team that I think a lot of people are going to want to avoid. That's how bad the Jets look right now. Thursday Night Football took place yesterday. The Broncos lost to the Chargers. I picked the Broncos to win this game. They should have won this game, but they did not. They blew a 21-10 lead. No touchdowns in the second half. The Chargers, man, defensively, I thought they played better. Offensively, they stepped up, scoring 21 unanswered points during the second half. The funny part about after the game, Broncos fans went on Twitter and started blaming the refs. I even got a couple of comments on my Facebook page. Broncos fans blaming the refs. I always love when people blame the refs. People do it for Chiefs games all the time, but listen, officiating's been bad all year. Now, officiating does not come down to like the final play or anything like that. People think they do. There are more than 100 plays that go in a football game. But people only want to talk about the bad call or the missed call late in the game, which is always interesting to me. Which is, again, Broncos fans want to complain about the refs, but the Broncos got away with an illegal man downfield during their second touchdown play. Now, I believe it was first and goal from the 1, so they probably would have scored anyway, but still, you can't get away with a call and then bitch and moan about the referees the rest of the game. Like, come on. You can't be doing that shit. Look, you guys know me. I don't like blaming the refs. I think referees are bad in general. I've said that many times in the past. But I've even seen Chiefs fans, like, I think it was the first Burrow and Mahomes meeting. A lot of Chiefs fans blamed the refs in that one. I'm like, oh, come on. We can't be doing that. Like, we just had a game not too long ago against the 49ers in the Super Bowl where their fan base complained about the refs. Like, we can't be looking like that. But every fan base does it. Chiefs fans are kind of enjoying that now because we never thought the Chiefs would ever be in a position where look, there was a conspiracy theory last year involving Taylor Swift, the Chiefs, and the election. Okay. I never thought in a million years the Chiefs would ever be in the middle of that kind of conspiracy theory, but I digress. This does open up the door for the Bengals. Whoever lost last night, the Bengals essentially needs that team to lose out the rest of the year. And right now, that team is the Broncos. But Bengals fans, I'm just telling you guys right now, stop giving yourself these false hopes. You're not getting it. It's not happening. First of all, the Bengals have to win out. They're 6-8. The best team. Who's the best team the Bengals have beat this year? Oh yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. Another 6-8 team. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, the blocked punt fumble." Yeah, but they won. The Chiefs have had some games like that. The other 5 teams that the Bengals have beat, they're all eliminated from playoff contention. The Bengals are 0-7 against teams above 500. They're basically the Miami Dolphins from last year, except they don't have a good record right now. The Miami Dolphins, I think the only team they only beat one team with a winning record above 500, and I believe that was Dallas late in the season. So, you already don't have a good track record when it comes to strength of victory. And you have Denver and Pittsburgh to play. Good luck with that. Pittsburgh's definitely going to be playing their starters in week 18 unless they're locked in with the 3 seed and they can't go up or down any further. And by the way, the Bengals are going to need the Chiefs to beat the Broncos in week 18, and there's a chance that the Chiefs are going to rest their starters for that game. The fan base that has hated on the Chiefs more than any other fan base, they're going to be pulling for the Chiefs, only for the Chiefs to use 22 backups in that game. But listen, it's not going to come down to that anyway. That's like a massive long shot. The Ravens. What am I saying? The Bengals. I mean, they have a lot of other teams to go through. And by the way, they also need Miami and Indianapolis to lose at least once. Not happening. I think Miami has the easiest schedule of those three teams that are just outside the playoff picture, being Indy, Miami, and Cincinnati. So, yeah, good luck with that. One of the teams that I do want to talk about also in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, they cut Deontay Johnson today. That was, I don't want to say a shocker, but I didn't think that the Ravens were going to give up on him this quickly. Kind of a similar story with the 49ers and their linebacker, Devondre Campbell, who basically just quit on his team mid-game in the third quarter, and his entire team threw him under the bus for that. He got suspended 3 games. Johnson refused to go into a game earlier this year, about a week or two ago. I can't remember which game it was. He was suspended 1 game for that. And then earlier this week, the Ravens publicly put a statement excusing him from all team activities. Then Friday afternoon, today, he's gone. He was only a Baltimore Raven for 52 days. Chiefs got lucky here. They really did. This was one of the players Kansas City was considering. But just didn't work out. I don't even remember what did the Ravens send to the Panthers for this one here. Let's see. The New York Post has a great headline. Ravens cut Deontay Johnson to end disastrous post-trade marriage. Yeah, that might have been okay. The team traded wide receiver Deontay Johnson and a 6th-round pick to the Ravens for a 5th-round pick. Okay. I mean, listen, I'm not here to insult every single 5th-round pick to ever exist in NFL history, but you didn't lose much. I mean, you gave it a try, and it just didn't work out. Not the end of the world. I don't understand comments like this. You would want out of Baltimore? I don't get. I mean, listen. I get there might be some cities in America that maybe are not the safest. I don't know I don't know if that's the case for Baltimore. But I've never understood Americans shaming other American cities. Like, as someone that's an American citizen or became an American citizen, I should say, I just don't get it. Do you ever see people in third world countries shaming their own? I mean, I just don't get it. Like, do people in Mexico City, do they shame the people of Cancun? Or I've never understood that stuff, man. Last headline before we get to our Chiefs and Texans breakdown. L'Jarius Sneed not expected to return to the Titans this year due to an injury he's dealing with. It's reported to be a weird injury, which is never a good thing. This just sucks. I mean, I've always been a big fan of L'Jarius Sneed. I thought he did some great things here in Kansas City. Obviously, did have some issues with his shoulder. Last year was fighting through shoulder pain. Missed some practices, but I don't think he missed any games last year. But that nagging shoulder, I mean, that was an issue with him during his time in Kansas. I think he missed like 7 or 8 games as a rookie too, if I recall correctly. But this is a business. The Chiefs traded him. And fair or not, if an NFL general manager gives out a big contract to a player and they get hurt, and if it happens multiple times, that's going to be held against a GM. John Dorsey, this is exactly what happened to John Dorsey. He paid Justin Houston, he paid Eric Berry, gave them massive contracts. And by the way, he could have signed those 2 sooner, and he waited way too long. He waited for Justin Houston to get his 22 sacks. Justin Houston ended up getting more money because of that. Eric Berry had a monster 2016 season. He ended up getting more money than expected. Could have signed them sooner, didn't. And as soon as he signed those guys, they both got hurt very early into their new contracts. Veach was criticized because he did not get anything higher than a 3rd-round pick. Hell, look at Marcus Peters when he got traded from Kansas City. The Chiefs got a 2nd and a 4th-round pick for Marcus Peters. Now, I believe the Chiefs also sent like a 6th-round pick, if I recall correctly. But Marcus Peters is the guy that had the interceptions to show for it. L'Jarius Sneed didn't really have those eye-glowing stats. My point is, you just don't see a lot of teams, regardless of stats or just how good they are as cornerbacks, as defenders, cover guys. You just don't see teams often give up a lot for a cornerback. A 3rd-round pick I thought was a good deal for L'Jarius Sneed. And right now, given his struggles, and I know it's just one season, but sometimes people are going to be very quick to judge. Chiefs won that trade. Chiefs certainly won that trade. And that draft pick will be used this year, and there is going to be a lot of turnover this offseason. So they'll be able to use that to try to maybe use that to trade for another pick, or maybe just try to load up and see what they can get. But just the unfortunate part of sports sometimes, and hopefully L'Jarius Sneed can bounce back from this and have a full season, because if he can do that, he'll do really well. I watched him this year against Tyreek Hill do the same thing he did last year against Tyreek Hill in the playoffs. Just own that guy. Just unfortunate, though. I've said it many times. Injuries are part of sports in a very unforgiving way. And that's just the reality of it. Christmas is almost here, and if you want to give a loved one a last-minute gift, why not get them tickets from SeatGeek? The NFL playoffs are around the corner, college bowl games are going on, NBA, NHL, and college basketball are all in full swing, and before you know it, baseball season will be here. SeatGeek is where I go for all of my sports ticketing needs, and so should you. Get your tickets from SeatGeek, and new customers can use my promo code FARZINE to save $20 off their first purchase. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and new customers at checkout can use my promo code FARZINE and save $20 off their first order from SeatGeek. Yeah, that's a good call, Deb. I completely forgot about that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was let go, and then he ended up joining the Saints, reuniting with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Marquez Valdes-Scantling's playing well. That dude's not dropping passes. Where was that last year? But neither here nor there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, hopefully he does well. Had a nice goodbye message, and the Chiefs also returned the message with a thank you graphic there. So that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, good call on that one. That I completely forgot about that. All right, I think I'm doing okay. Obviously, got some pre-recorded content in there. For those of you who came in late, I do appreciate you guys being patient this week with the podcast. Been under the weather. So I apologize. No Red Friday live chat today, so I'm not going to be answering any questions or anything like that. But we will attempt to return to normalcy next week, which is already me getting ahead of myself, because next week is not a normal week. I mean, we'll still do the Chiefs Zone podcast going into Wednesday's game, and we will do the pregame, the halftime live stream, and the post-game podcast. Even on Christmas. Yeah, second year in a row we're doing that. And then we will do the Red Friday live chat next week. So be on the lookout for all of that. And we will have the Red Friday live chat. Yeah, that'll be back. And then tomorrow, obviously another noon kickoff game we're going to be having. So 8:30 pregame live stream tomorrow morning. Join me for that. Halftime live stream. Join me for that as well. And then we'll have the post-game podcast with the link for you guys to call in. So if you guys haven't done that already, make sure make that part of your plan for Saturday's Chiefs game. All right, let's get into the game between the Chiefs and the Texans. The referee is Carl Cheffers, everyone's favorite referee, especially in Kansas City. This is going to be on NBC. The announcers for this game, Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge, former Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. The last Chiefs quarterback drafted in the first round prior to Patrick Mahomes. So Blackledge will be making his return to Kansas City. That'll be cool. And then Noah Eagle, he is the son of Ian Eagle. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of college football or not. I believe he does the Saturday night games for NBC. I think the first time I ever watched Noah Eagle was for one of those playoff games that was on Nickelodeon, just to check out like the Slime Time Live or whatever. Dude, Noah Eagle's really good at what he does. He really is. If you pay attention to any of his, whether he's doing a Slime Time football game or he's doing college football, this guy really knows his stuff. He's 28 years old. I mean, think of where you were when you were 28. This guy is one of the more accomplished broadcasters at 28 years old. Does he have maybe a foot in because of his dad? Yeah. Kevin Harlan was kind of the same way because his dad was the president of the Packers. Joe Buck, same thing with his dad. But man, Noah Eagle's very talented, and this guy really knows his stuff. So I'm excited to see him announce this game. If you've never heard Noah Eagle call a game before, I think you'll really enjoy this one here. The line for this one got pretty crazy because earlier in the week, we did not know if Patrick Mahomes was going to play. And as a result, all the sports books, all the odds makers, they had Houston favored by 4 points. Then the news came out that Patrick Mahomes was a full participant in practice. The odds makers noticed that, and the line completely shifted. The Chiefs became 2-point betting favorites. Right now on DraftKings, they are 3.5-point betting favorites. So for any of you who put down money on the Chiefs money line or even on the spread earlier in the week, congratulations. That is some money in your pockets right there. So hopefully you guys can enjoy that. Obviously, some good things would need to happen as well. The over-under for this one is 42.5. And I forgot to mention, as far as money line goes, the Chiefs are at minus 185, Texans at plus 154. So that is where what money line stands now. Obviously, that'll change going into tomorrow. The Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans was a good football player, both during his time in college football playing at Alabama. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2005, and in 2006, he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was a two-time Pro Bowler, and that was earlier in his career. He was also an All-Pro at one point. That was mostly earlier in his career while he was with the Texans. Played with the Eagles for a little bit. Played one season under Andy Reid. That was in 2012, Andy Reid's final year with the Eagles before he was let go. He joined Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco to get his coaching career going. Built his way up in San Francisco and then joined the Texans. And joining him was also the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick. He was also with the Shanahan family earlier, though, from 2010 to 2013 in Washington. He started as a video assistant, then it became a defensive assistant, and then over time he switched over to the offensive side, and he followed DeMeco Ryans over to Houston. When you look at Houston's stats, 19th in total offense, 19th in passing, 17th in rushing, 13th in scoring with 23.4 points per game. The Chiefs are 12th in that category. Just a little bit higher, 23.5 points per game. Third down, they are 20th in third down efficiency at 37%. And when it comes to the red zone, they are 18th with a 54% efficiency rate. CJ Stroud, not necessarily having the type of season he had last year as a rookie, 3,200 yards, 12th in the NFL, 17 touchdowns, 9 picks, had 23 touchdowns and 5 picks last year during his rookie campaign. He's been sacked 45 times, the second most. Sack numbers are going to be very interesting in this breakdown here, so just be aware of that. But CJ Stroud, he's been sacked 45 times, again, second most in the NFL. The only player who's been sacked more times, and it's not even close, it's Caleb Williams, the rookie out of Chicago. He's been sacked 58 times this season. Just to give you an idea, who's been sacked third most, that is Geno Smith. Then it's Sam Darnold. And then I don't have the next player on the list, but Geno Smith and then Sam Darnold. For some reason, I thought I had the player after Darnold, but I don't. So let's it's not Patrick Mahomes. I know some people were probably wondering that, but no, that's not the case. As far as the offensive line, this is what we need to talk about here, because CJ Stroud was sacked 4 times against the Dolphins last week. He was also sacked 4 times a couple of weeks ago against the Tennessee Titans. And on the Thursday Night Football Halloween game, he was sacked a total of 8 times. He's been sacked at least 3 times in each of the first 3 games of this season. So the offensive line for the Texans got off to a really bad start and hasn't really been able to recover. No interceptions in the last 2 games for CJ Stroud, but did lose a fumble this past Sunday against Miami. In fact, he did have just 131 passing yards against the Dolphins in that game. The Texans offensive line, they allowed a total of 10 quarterback pressures in that game. When you look at their offensive line, and we're going to be talking about a lot of them here, Shaq Mason, he's allowed 34 pressures and 8 sacks on the season. Blake Fisher, who's filling in for Titus Howard at his original position at right tackle, 11 pressures and 2 sacks in 6 games total. I mentioned Titus Howard. He has made their recent switch to left guard. So far on the year, mostly at right tackle, he's allowed 32 pressures and 4 sacks. Kenyon Green recently activated from IR. He's expected to come back soon. Is he going to start in this game? We don't know, but on the season, he's allowed 27 pressures and 5 sacks. Juice Scruggs is injured right now, the center. So the backup center is Jarrett Patterson. 6 pressures allowed in 7 games. Not bad when it comes to his pass blocking, but not a very good run blocker, and that is where Kansas City has excelled this year, defensively speaking. Laramie Tunsil, their best offensive lineman, he's allowed 15 pressures on the season. He leads the NFL with 17 penalties in the league. 10 of them are false starts, so it's not like he's doing anything during games that's hurting the team too bad. These are just 5-yard penalties, so they're not the worst. I'm not saying they're irrelevant. I mean, that's a lot of false start penalties, but those are things that you can always work around if you're an offense. Whereas with Jawan Taylor, he's committing them during the plays, like the illegal formation and the holding, which you see a lot of that. Surprisingly, Tunsil does have more false start penalties than Jawan Taylor. So the 10 false starts, though, if there's anyone that can maybe utilize that to their advantage, I think Spags can do that. Absolutely, Spags can do that. The running back Joe Mixon spent 7 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is his first year with the Texans. 910 yards, having a really good season for them. 11 touchdowns. That is tied for 7th most in the league this year when it comes to rushing touchdowns. He had 4 straight games of 100 plus rushing yards at one point, but he's now kind of in a weird situation where he's got some inconsistency going. He'll run for 100 plus yards one game, then he runs for 20 or 30 yards, runs for 100, goes to 20, 30 yards. So he's been dealing with that the last few games lately. So he's been very inconsistent. Ran for just, I think, 23 yards against the Dolphins last week. So not very good. I know he's also been dealing with an injury lately. So he's got some things going on there, but he is expected to play in this game. So we'll see what he does. He did miss the Jacksonville game. That is the game he missed a couple of weeks ago. Wide receiver Nico Collins, I think at one point he was leading the NFL in receiving yards before his injury. 53 catches, 849 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Despite missing 5 games, he's been the Texans' leading receiver. Coming off a weird game where he only had 4 catches. Half of them went in the end zone. Only 17 yards total for him in the game last week against the Dolphins. The week before, he did have a big game, 8 catches for 119 yards off of 11 targets there. No receptions in the end zone, but still a really good game for him a couple of weeks ago. Tank Dell, also a really important piece of that Texans offense. 45 catches, 569 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's on pace to have similar numbers from last year. He has been quiet the past couple of weeks, had just 2 catches against Miami, 1 catch the week before against Jacksonville. Their tight end, Dalton Schultz, who was with the Cowboys for a number of years, he has 43 receptions for 437 yards and just 1 touchdown on the season. He did have 8 touchdowns with the Cowboys in 2021, had 5 each of the last 2 years, and he's only had 1 touchdown this season. And that 1 touchdown came a couple of weeks ago against Jacksonville. Joe Mixon is a guy that you like to use in the air game as well. 32 grabs for 277 yards, 308 yak yards there, yards after the catch, which that cannot be correct. I don't know how that's possible with Joe Mixon. Bear with me 1 minute because I do want to get that correct. Yeah, you can't have more yak yards than receiving yards there. That would not work. Yeah, I have the 277 yards here. The receiving yards, that is, for him. But in terms of yak yards for Joe Mixon, oh, that is what it is. 308 yards. Okay. That's what it shows on there. So disregard, I guess. That is what's on the ESPN Texans site. So unless that's a mistake, that is what they have. Unless maybe one was a big one off a lateral. I don't know. That is possible as well. We've seen that a couple of times this year with Kelsey and a weird one with Josh Allen. So you guys be the judge on that one. Let's see. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, the Houston Texans offense, they ran 50 plays against Miami last week. That's the fewest all season for Houston. Not sure what the season low is for any NFL team, but for Houston, it's 50 for sure. Certainly not a good thing, especially against a team like the Miami Dolphins. Robert Woods, probably going to get more snaps in this game since John Mechie III is out in this game. But that is essentially the Texans offense in a nutshell. Their defensive coordinator is Matt Burke, spent time with 7 different NFL teams from 2004 to 2023 before joining the Texans. Got his first defensive coordinator job in the NFL. It's his second season with the Texans, and their defense is pretty damn good. I told you sacks were going to be a key in this podcast breakdown. Yeah, you're about to hear why. 4th in total defense. Oh, yeah, but Stephon Diggs, yeah, he's on IR, so unfortunately, he won't be with the Texans offense in this game, which is good for Kansas City's defense, of course. 6th against the pass, 10th against the run, 9th in points per game allowed, just over 21 points per game. They are also tied 4th when it comes to their third down defense, allowing a conversion just 34% of the time. They do have a big weakness, though, and that is in the red zone. They have the 5th worst red zone defense, and if there was ever a time for Kansas City to improve that really bad red zone offense, it would be in this game against the Texans here. One very important thing about the Texans that you all need to know, they have the 2nd most interceptions and the 2nd most sacks in the league. They've got 19 interceptions and 45 sacks. 2nd in both of those categories there. Their linebacker, Aziz Al-Shair, he is currently serving his suspension. I believe this is the last game of the suspension for his hit on Trevor Lawrence. So instead, their Mike linebacker is Henry Toto. And yes, that is how you say it. I actually looked that up. He's their leading tackler right now. Great run stuffer. Last year's 5th round pick. Major step up, had 11 tackles against the Dolphins last week, also had a forced fumble, split a sack. He's had 6 tackles for a loss on the season. Their front 4, certainly one you need to be concerned about. Daniel Hunter, he has 12 sacks and 17 tackles for a loss, 2nd in both of those categories in the NFL. He's going up against Jawan Taylor, so you know for sure Jawan Taylor is going to be holding him. He had 1.5 sacks against Miami last week, had 3 sacks against Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Will Anderson, the defensive end opposite of Hunter, 10.5 sacks. That is the 7th most in the NFL. 14 tackles for a loss. That's in the top 10. He's going to be going up against Joe Thuney, assuming Thuney is going to remain at left tackle. I don't know why you would put Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia there, but that is the expected left tackle for the Chiefs. Joe Thuney, according to PFF, he allowed 10 pressures last week while going up against Myles Garrett. 9 of them came in the second half. Their defensive tackle, Tim Settle, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss. He's going to be going up against Mike Caliendo, who made his first career start last week. And yeah, Tim Settle's the guy who talked a little bit of shit this week, saying that he hopes Patrick Mahomes is mobile and that he makes good decisions. And then he says, "I ain't making threats; I'm only making promises." So that's interesting. We all know how that works when people have something to say about the Chiefs. And yes, Nick Wright did put it on his board there. That's what Nick Wright does best. Derek Stingley, looking at their defensive backs, wonder why they have so many interceptions. Guys like Derek Stingley, he's got 5 interceptions on the season. And their safety, Kalen Bullock, also has 5 picks on the year. So both in the top 10 in that category. I think top 5, actually, in that category for both of those guys. Bullock has 96 interception return yards. He had a 68-yard interception he took back last week. Stingley had 2 interceptions against the Dolphins. Also had a pick against the Jaguars. By the way, I want to make a point. The Kalen Bullock interception and the Derek Stingley Jr., the 2 picks he had, Tua threw 3 picks. Obviously, I just mentioned to who? 2 of them to Stingley. All 3 of those interceptions that Tua threw, they were all intended for Tyreek Hill. And I think as Chiefs fans, you guys all know it is pretty hard to throw 3 interceptions when all 3 of them are intended for Tyreek Hill. And I still remember, I think Stingley had one in the end there where he picked it off, and that basically shut the door on any Dolphins comeback in that game. So this is a team that definitely had Tyreek Hill's number in this game here, not letting him do whatever he wanted to do. So pretty good defensive outing there for the Houston Texans against Tyreek Hill, shutting him down. That was clearly the game plan for them. Their other safety, Jimmy Ward, he's got a couple of picks on the season. He had a pick 6 earlier this year. That was against Tennessee. That gave Houston the lead, but Houston could not capitalize and stay ahead in that one, and they ended up losing to the Titans. Their special teams coordinator, Frank Ross, he was retained from the previous staff in Houston. He coached at John Carroll at one point, scouted for the Patriots, became an assistant special teams coordinator for the Colts, and now is with the Texans. He's been there since 2021. They've got a really good kicker in Kai Fairbairn. He is 33 of 39. Not the greatest field goal percentage there, but he does have the second most makes behind Chris Boswell's 38 field goals on the season. Their punter, you guys know this guy, Tommy Townsend, one of the best punters in the NFL. He has 22 punts that have been fair caught. That is tied for the most with 2 others. He's also only had 105 punt return yards. The Houston Texans punt return defense have only allowed 105 punt return yards. That is 33rd in the NFL. Among just individual punters and how many punt return yards they've allowed. That's 33rd. So that tells you a lot about the Houston Texans special teams unit. So, I mean, that's pretty good. And when it comes to their kick returns, they don't attempt a lot of kick returns. They've only had 19 on the year. That is tied for 7th fewest. But they have the 4th best kick return average on the season. Their running back, Damian Pierce, he's had just 7 returns all year. No touchdowns, but just 7 returns all season. His longest went for 80 yards. So special teams is going to be an important factor here because they have a really good kicker. They have a really good punter. And if they want to take a kick return back, they're certainly capable of going very far with it and giving their offense great field position. And I think given how good Kansas City's defense is, I would not be surprised if you see the Texans try to take back some of these kickoff returns in this game. That's something that I think Dave Toub is certainly going to be ready for. I'm sure the Chiefs all know this stuff, and they'll try to be ready for it. As far as Mahomes goes, he's expected to play in this game, or will play in this game, I should say. His game designation was removed on the injury report. By the way, I love the narrative out there that he faked his injury. Like, what benefit do you have to faking your injury? And for people who are saying, oh, he gets attention for it, why would Patrick freaking Mahomes need attention? He and his wife literally hang out with Taylor Swift. I don't think they need attention. I mean, come on, like make it make sense. Like if you don't like Mahomes and you want to attack him, fine. But I mean, at least make things make sense. Come on. It's not that hard here. But I do have concerns about the offensive line. It's not going to be a good game for Patrick Mahomes, I don't think. My criticism of Mahomes recently has been that he's going for these deep shots down the field to Justin freaking Watson. And listen, that's not the only play. But on that play where he attempted to throw to Justin Watson, he had a wide open Xavier Worthy. And he admitted this in the press conference this week, saying that Worthy probably scores a touchdown if he throws the ball to him there in stride. I think Patrick's got to be better with his decision making for sure. And the Texans have that in their game plan because you have Tim Settle saying, "Oh, I hope he makes good decisions." Yeah, sounds like your coach told you what the game plan is, and they spent time talking about it. Not really sure if that's something you would want out there. And listen, Andy Reid was upset with Justin Reid once because he said, I can't remember the name of the tight end for the Bengals at the time, but he said that he can defend him. And Andy Reid was upset over that. I don't think listen, I think they kind of gave away the game. Not that, the Chiefs know everything about the Texans defense and what they want to do specifically, but I just feel like, you kind of made it clear, like, okay, you want to pressure him so he can make bad decisions. So if you're Patrick Mahomes, and listen, we know the Chiefs, and I see the comment from Justin about running. Yeah, I agree, but I don't think and Frayne, you said it as well. I don't think you're going to see the Chiefs run it as much as I would like for them to. I'm just not expecting it because Andy Reid doesn't do that. But with DeAndre Hopkins on the field, Travis Kelce on the field, Juju, Worthy, and Hollywood now back, you would like to believe that the Chiefs are going to be able to find an open player here. With all that speed you have on the field, Noah Gray, you got to think that Mahomes doesn't need more than 2 seconds to find someone wide open on those short routes there. Because if you hit Hollywood Brown, you hit Worthy, you hit Juju, Kelce, Gray, those are all guys who possess good speed. DeAndre Hopkins, he's not known for his speed, and that's okay. But he can certainly attract a lot of defenders to him. And if he's ever in a one-on-one situation, that's always a good thing for Kansas City. You can't double team all of these guys. So let's see how the Chiefs offense is going to look with Hollywood Brown in the mix now. Is Hollywood Brown going to be a decoy? Or the Texans defenders going to be focused on somebody else? And that allows Hollywood to get open a lot? Could Xavier Worthy be the guy that gets open a lot in this game? Or is it going to be the two tight ends, Kelce and Gray? I mean, you have opportunities in this game to showcase what the offense can do and kind of, get into a rhythm before the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. That's what I'm expecting. I don't think you're going to see a lot of points in this one. I don't think it's going to be low scoring, but I don't think it's going to be high scoring either. I am going to go 20-17 Kansas City in this football game. 2017 Chiefs. That is my score prediction for tomorrow. Reminder, we are doing the pregame live chat tomorrow at 8:30 Central Time, so join me for that. At halftime, we will be doing our halftime live stream, so make sure you guys join me for that as well. And then after the game, we will be doing the Chiefs Zone podcast live. We'll have the link for you guys to call in with those video calls. It's a Saturday afternoon, so hopefully a lot of you guys will have some free time after the game to watch, tune in, and call into the game. If you guys just want to comment along instead, that's certainly fine as well. We can always read your comments during or after the game rather. So make sure you guys join me afterwards. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to discuss, and then we'll be doing some scoreboard watching on Sunday. So that'll be a lot of fun. 20-17. That is my score prediction for tomorrow's Chiefs game. All right, guys. Hey, thank you all for joining me on this episode. Appreciate everyone's patience this week, and I appreciate you guys being patient with me for this one. I know this is not my best because I'm still a little under the weather. Feeling better, I promise. I should be good to go tomorrow. I think I'll be a game time decision, but I'll be good to go tomorrow for the game. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If you missed any part of the podcast, if you came in late, it'll be on the archive versions on Facebook, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anywhere where you can download and listen to a podcast. If you haven't done so, please share the links. Let a friend know about the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If I don't hear from a lot of you guys, or if you guys aren't able to tune in for a while, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Enjoy the holidays. If you're traveling, be safe. Enjoy your Friday night. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Peace out.